Welcome to The Bottom, a show created by Dogira Studios. I'm your host, Elijah McDougall. In this long overdue and very late episode of The Bottom, I get to sit down with Davey Oberlin. You might know him as the project creator for Boneheads NFT, but I know him first as the keyboardist from Korn. Yeah, that Korn. So, kind of a big deal to be talking to this guy. I'm a big new metal fan. I also just like metal in general, but it's very cool to talk to somebody who is so instrumental to my musical tastes. But, he's more than just a musician. He is actually an NFT artist and just an artist in general. One of the things that's really interesting is when we see celebrities or, Twitter blue checks enter the NFT space out of the blue, it usually feels like a cash grab, or they're just trying to jump on some sort of bandwagon while it's hot, right? But Davey's actually kind of the standout exception to this trend. He is, like I said, an actual artist, but he also was an animator when he was a teenager. He worked on Powerpuff Girls. Obviously he's been in Korn, so he's been really big into the music scene, animation. He's a real bona fide artist at the end of the day. And he's been working on the Boneheads IP since he was a kid. So like when he's saying that like this is a passion project, it's not just, oh, I decided it was a passion project that I'm going to make an NFT thing. It's, this is my life's work. Want to bring it to NFTs because this feels like where it's most appropriate. So that's what he's kind of bringing to the table, is that really hardcore artistic commitment to the NFT space, to his IP and his brand. So we're also going to be digging into the creative process for all of this work that he's put into Boneheads. We're going to be talking about how to build a community in the NFT space, how to expand that brand. And when we actually recorded this episode, they had just launched, and now we are actually past, them minting out. So they've been successful, at least in their initial value proposition to the community. And now they're in build mode, and they're going to be creating a generative collection that's going to be airdropped to Genesis NFT holders, and so much more. So go show Davey some love after you listen to this episode, because he's a really cool guy. And I think the Boneheads community would appreciate you guys just saying hello. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Hey there, Davey and Marcella. How's it going?
Great. Yourself?
Doing quite well. Thanks for being here today. Basically, you guys are both the creator and the community manager for Boneheads NFT. I would love for you guys to kind of introduce us to your project, introduce us to who you are, and we'll go from there. So, Davey, why don't you start?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to meet you. Thanks for having us. I'm Davey Oberlin. A little bit about me. You might know me for, my work with the music industry and my time as the live touring keyboard player for the band Korn, guitar player for Winds of Plague. But a lot of people don't know that when I was 16, I was working on Powerpuff Girls, and I've been drawing since I was a kid. So not too long ago, I launched this brand Boneheads, and I'm the artist and creator behind it. Boneheads, at the time being, is a collection of 180 NFTs. They're up on OpenSea. They're on the Ethereum blockchain. They're at 0.18 ETH. We're more than half sold out on it. And we are also within that 180 giving you 30 of the most important and the most flagship characters to the brand. So Boneheads is a story that I came up with myself. Each character is named by me, hand drawn. They have personalities, backgrounds, hidden history, and there's also a whole world that they're involved in, and there's all kinds of cool hidden history with there as well. Part of the cool thing with this community is, I haven't given everything up right in the beginning. So I'm going to be revealing a lot of that over time. Everybody that's involved in holding, you're going to be getting 5 free mints on the second drop. But aside from that, you're getting original music by me. I'm going to be doing theme songs for all of them. We're looking at animations. We're talking about gamification. There's just all kinds of cool things, but the most important thing is to like elicit a sense of imagination and fun, and have the community interacting with each other and having fun with these characters. I always appreciated Pixar's approach at reaching out to adults and kids, and both being able to exist in the same space. So that's kind of what I'm going for here, and I'm grabbing a lot of the things that inspired me when I was younger, a lot of the awesome sci-fi and fantasy films that had practical effects, and the comic books that I read. So you'll see a little bit of certain nods to that in a lot of these characters. And I have a reason behind all their names as well. So there's all kinds of ways for me to interact with the community and to, get on the ground floor with everything and just really explain what's going on, and we can have those conversations. But the cool thing is, the less I give, the more people have to, to explore in the mystery of it. And that's really important to me because, I'm a big fan of shows like Ancient Aliens and things of that nature. And I love looking at, these old pyramids and these weird hieroglyphics and going, what really was going on? And that's where I'm going with this. I want to create that kind of feeling in this universe. So that's a little bit about Boneheads right off the top. But yeah, man, fire anything you want at me. Any questions? I'm happy to talk about it. Drop new alpha, anything.
Yeah. It's not very often that you meet somebody as creative as yourself who has this kind of intellectual property that you've been building since you were a kid. What was the catalyst for you realizing that this was the time to kind of bring that to life? And when did you feel like your skills hit that point where it was time to start cultivating that?
That's a great question. So these boneheads, the creatures in the drawings, they existed well before I was even aware of the NFT space, and it was something that I was kind of doing. And I'd done some commissions, and a lot of times on tour, we'd have a lot of time to kill, so I'd have some canvases and some acrylics, and I would just create these creatures with these horns. And um, I was building that up, and I was like, man, there's got to be some way I can do this, because I was seeing that people were really receptive to the art. They were appreciating it. They were keeping it. They were stoked on it. But I just didn't know exactly what to do with it. Then I started learning more about NFTs, and what I learned with them is there was utility, and then there was more than that. There was, Web3 in itself having all kinds of forms of media and entertainment, all you know tied into one thing. And that's really what I want to do. Like, I didn't want to just draw and just create art. I wanted to be able to encompass everything I'm passionate about into one place. So I was approached by a really small team to partner up because they were familiar with the space. They love the art, and they wanted to help me achieve that goal if I was interested. And when they presented it to me, I was like, this is a great idea. This is where I should launch this art. This is where Boneheads needs to live, because I'm going to be producing music and giving that to my holders. And I'm going to be able to do all these things. And it makes sense. It's not like I'm just, adding on DLC, or you picked up a plush toy in a store, then you randomly found out there's an album at another store. It's all in one place. And I think that was really the kickoff point for me deciding, like, this is perfect for Boneheads. This is where it needs to exist. And this is the birthplace of it.
Oh, that's very cool. Can you talk a little bit more about the team that approached you? Had you heard about NFTs, and were you interested in the space a little bit before they approached you, or was it a bit of that was the intersection point where you decided to dive in?
Yeah, at the point that they had brought it up to me, I had already learned a little bit about it. I had friends that were starting to invest, and friends that were also launching their own projects. So my ears were perked. I was definitely really curious. I had done a canvas piece for a friend, and he was working with some NFT clients, writing up contracts for them and helping them. And they'd come over to his place, and they saw that, and they're like, "Oh my God, why isn't this an NFT? Like, this is perfect for it." And so we set up a lunch together, and I got to meet him, and it was super organic. Like, I didn't even know I was meeting with people involved in that space. It was just to see if we'd get along. And then the conversation came up, like, here's something we can do. What do you think of this? I was 100% on board because, it just seemed like a not only a great group of people that, were genuinely passionate about this space, but they had the knowledge to pass on to me to successfully, come into these communities and start building my own.
So when it comes to building that community, I think one of the things that's very interesting about Boneheads is that you don't see a lot of kind of one-of-one collections, let alone one-of-one collection that has 180, 210 pieces with it. So how did you go about cultivating this community around your art when you're not like playing to an NFT meta? You're kind of embarking on your own path.
Yeah, it was a little nerve wracking because I had never. I mean, biggest thing was I didn't really go out there and talk about myself. I didn't talk about my experiences. A lot of my time was spent as far as social media goes on Instagram, because I like to share visually what journeys I had going on. I could share the music I was listening to at the time, you know. So I really neglected Twitter. I didn't realize that there was an active community there. They were doing spaces, they were getting together every day. Um, and I was really nervous about coming up and saying, okay, here's me, here's what I've done. And this is why I want you to check out my project, because I'm tying all of these experiences into this thing. Um, so I started going into spaces with communities like the Stuffy Bunnies, Woke Zombies, Crypto Homies, Chad and Brad's, Funky Flies, and they were really receptive. They were all people that, you know, not only were fans of art, but they were fans of music. They knew Korn, you know. So having that experience playing with those guys, they were like, "Yeah, come in here, hang out. Let's hear what you know. Let's hear some stories." And they genuinely latched onto the art as well, and were really supportive of that. So it kind of was the kickoff point where I realized, like, you know, this is fantastic. These communities are so supportive. It's totally a contrast from the music industry, because, you know, it's quite common in the music industry. You look in the comment section and you look at the communities, and they're trashing everything, and they're trolling, and they're, you know, very cynical and negative, but not in the NFT space. If you're a person that's like that, you're very quickly cut out from the community. And I love that. So it was really cool to connect with those people. And I go into spaces every day. I spend a lot of time there. I was into spaces all day yesterday, and these people have become my friends. You know, I spend more time talking to them and hanging out with them than a lot of people that I normally would go out with or have grown up with. So that's kind of where it all started rounding out, and I realized, like, this is a cool space, and I can be myself and share my experiences, and people are happy to hear it.
You know, you said something that's really interesting to me. You're talking about kind of the music community and how a lot of people in that have kind of become jaded. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I'm hearing between the lines. A little jaded, a little grumpy. Do you kind of feel like the NFT space has a bit of that, like that old music scene vibe, where everybody's kind of just excited and experimenting, or how's your overall feeling been about it?
Yeah, I feel like, if I had to contrast it to music, it would be like you're the popular local band, and all of your friends also have their own side bands, and everybody in the audience is your friends, and they're there to support you. So you're in that room with all those people at all times, as opposed to your article releases on lambgoat.com, and the comment section is making fun of you or trashing you because of your band photo. So it's a huge contrast. It's a pretty safe space outside of, you know, obviously we get scammers and stuff like that. That just goes with the territory. Wherever money is, you're gonna have people trying to get it. But outside of that, it's really positive. You know, there's no, if somebody's in there, you know, scamming or doing something wrong, they get shut down pretty quick. So the feeling is like you just have a camaraderie, and you have all these people that are on the same page rooting for you. There's enough to go around. Everybody wants you to eat dinner.
Yeah, man, I love that. That's been my overall experience in the space. I kind of do my own side projects in the NFT space here and there, but I mainly work in the cryptocurrency space, which is, you know, obviously adjacent to NFTs. But that's where I got my start. I started working for this company called Dogira. We make blockchain games, and so it's been really interesting to kind of peek into your community and kind of watch how everybody acts. And honestly, I've been really impressed with the community that you guys have put together. I think that it's really definitely got some strong legs behind it, which is not something you see a lot in the NFT space. Um, Overall, the what I have seen, especially in this kind of bear market, is that a lot of projects have like those core 5 or 6 people, and then everybody else kind of lurks and goes away. And so I've been really impressed that you guys have been able to kind of keep up the energy and keep people active. So with the bear market in mind, and with your mint ongoing right now, what's your kind of short to midterm plan for Boneheads? You mentioned that you want to turn it into a brand. Is this going to be something that you expand, rain or shine, that you're going to be building, you know, at your own pace or at the pace of your community if it surges? Can you walk me through a bit about your kind of thought process behind developing Boneheads as a business and brand?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's important to mention, you know, we took a boutique approach, you know, so it's a very small, personal, it's all organic at all costs. We've turned down any and all offers to do paid promotion, any sort of marketing campaigns. We've avoided all of that. We've just kept it boutique and organic. So hopefully everybody that's here now in this community wants to be here. They're excited about it, and it's totally organic. Because of that, we were able to, mint out over half of the project in 24 hours. And, we're not at a very cheap price point. We are at a price point where people do feel like it's a little bit on the pricier side. So that in a bear market feels like a huge success that we were able to get to the point now where we only have like 54 left in the collection. But I think the biggest thing is that, yeah, rain or shine, I create all the content. So, I'm doing the art, I'm doing the music that's going to be involved. So no matter what, there's always going to be that content delivered from me. I'm always going to be figuring out ways to build on the story, to show these creatures coming to life and what goes behind that, So there's always going to be a steady flow of that. But I think the plan is, regardless, small or big, however the community grows, we're going to just keep going on that trajectory to kind of grow it out. So for this first drop, you don't get any, we're not giving intellectual property rights, because these 30 characters are going to be so integral to our story. We're going to be doing a lot with them, and we need to have the ability to do that freely without having to worry about, maybe somebody grabs one and then beats us to the chase and makes an animation, and then, it kind of chunks our plans a little bit. But then the second drop, that'll be generative, and we're going to offer those IP rights. So you're going to have the story and everything built. Then you're going to get your own characters, and you're going to be able to add those to the story. We're going to be able to do fun things with the community, like naming contests. You name your creature that you've minted, and then everybody decides like on a backstory for their characters, and then we vote, and the ones that we pick get added to the canon. Things of that nature. So it's really cool, because the way that we're approaching it from the start, everything's upgradable. And no matter what happens, no matter how things sell, no matter how things speed wise are going, it's always going to be moving forward. There's always going to be something to do.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by the IP rights part of what you were talking about there. I kind of have a bit of a background with people who used to work in Hollywood. I call them my creative mentors. They kind of taught me how to write scripts and help me ideate in a bigger kind of branding sense. And so we've had a lot of conversations about IP. And in fact, we talk on this podcast, we've had some pretty in-depth conversations about IP in the past. What are your thoughts then about kind of so one of the big headlines recently was Seth Green had his ape stolen when he was developing his Bored Ape cartoon. And so, yeah, that obviously leaves him in a big lurch, because he doesn't have the IP rights to it anymore. And the person who took it, can sue him if he continues to make the show. What are your kind of, what are your thoughts, and what's your vision about kind of that? If you own the NFT, you own the IP in this space. I'd love to hear much more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you used that example, because that's exactly what I was thinking about. And, it's new territory. This is all like one big experiment on how things are going to go. It's a new frontier. Thankfully, I have an excellent attorney, and we were able to have these conversations. And, that's exactly the type of thing we worry about. If somebody, so Bobby Bear is basically the mascot of the brand. If somebody has the IP rights to him and goes off and just throws a ton of money behind an excellent animation, that's fantastic for them. But then that also keeps us from fulfilling the vision that we have as well, and it adds certain roadblocks. So I felt like, in order for the particular approach that we're taking to be the most successful and clean, we needed to have our own flagship that are locked in, and then the community will be added into that. I love the idea of this space offering rights, and seeing the kind of explosive chain reaction that causes. Like, in Long Beach, there's a restaurant, and it's all because that person owns one of the Bored Apes. So they were able to take that, make that the mascot, and kind of the foundation of that restaurant. I think that's brilliant. Those are all really cool things. But I think every project is going to have their own flow and their own way they're going to do it. And it's not, it wouldn't be wise to use the same formula for everything. So if we're all copying the Bored Ape formula, then that just becomes stale. It no longer becomes a special space anymore. You just start to get to that point where it's a bunch of copycats and clones. I really think it's important that we take these different utilities and ideas that are happening, and we take our own spin on them. And I'll go back to the music industry as well. Everybody took their own spin on blues and rock and roll, and that's where you start to develop all these new sounds and all these exciting new ventures, inspiring other people. So for us, the approach we're taking is we're going to make the IP rights side of it something special and something that makes sense to the project. And with that, it will be adding your own, special character into the lore and into the canon.
Yeah. Speaking of lore and canon, I went to school for literature and journalism, and so I have a heart for kind of storytelling and all that. And I've always had
That's awesome.
this interesting. I have an interesting relationship with community members being able to kind of create lore that becomes kind of shared, official, borrowed. Like, my grab on point for that is like the old extended universe for Star Wars before Disney nixed it. But like,
Oh yeah, like
any
Tales
author
of
who could
Mos
get the rights
Eisley's
for Star
Cantina.
Wars could just like, write any book as long as George Lucas signed off on it. It was canon. And so you had all these
Totally.
like weird interlocking pieces. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it becomes very interesting though in this NFT space, because like the people who are potentially working with the IP aren't necessarily storytellers, and they're not necessarily coming to you to sign up. So how do you kind of imagine the world, or the extended universe of Boneheads, if you will, since you have like the OG Boneheads and then everybody else has the generative Boneheads? How do you kind of see that world becoming enmeshed?
Yeah, I think that's a really good example right there, is the Star Wars canon and the different comics and books. I used to read the novels, like I was saying, the Tales of Mos Eisley Cantina. You get to see every alien in the Cantina story leading up to the point where, the alien's arm gets cut off with a lightsaber. And I love that kind of stuff. So I thought it was really important that we kind of set the foundation and the guidelines. Like, here's the story that you're working with. So when we start letting people come up with their own lore, and we're deciding if that's going to be part of the canon, they have a guideline to kind of fit so that everything makes sense, because you don't want to like have this fantastic universe and then have like a 7-Eleven big gulp cup introduced into it, and then you're thrown off aesthetically. What's that doing here? So the vision I have with it is, as we extend the universe, once you find out why the boneheads are what they are, why they have these horns, where they're coming from, what the difference between the hybrids are and the ancients, which are the two types that you're seeing right now, you're going to have this greater story to work with, and it'll totally make sense that these new creatures are being introduced. And to be able to build on that will be easy, because there's going to be a really lush universe with a lot of background, and it's ever expanding, because it goes from the land that they inhabit, which is Enoch, to the surrounding planets and things like that. So it's a really nice foundation and something to grow on. And I can already see the imagination that the people in our community are having. We did the meme contest; it was hilarious, and now they're going to have a chance to really latch on to what's going on and start to see, visually what the world is that they're inhabiting, and then create their own stories within that.
That's genuinely really exciting to me. I had seen kind of the breadcrumbs you guys have been putting out for the lore and the backstory on the Boneheads world, and I've been very very dialed in on it. It's very much my cup of tea. And I suppose
Awesome.
that's kind of where I want to pivot a little bit to your overall experience as a creator, your time with Korn, your time just in the new metal and metal scene in general, and in your animation work. How much of your time spent with the Korn touring and being in and like a new metal and metal environment, how much has that kind of informed how Boneheads was shaped?
Honestly, I think those worlds kind of, that was like something that I had to thrust myself into and fully be present in, 100% of the time. So when I'm outside of that, the creative juices are really flowing. And I think that that's the biggest benefit that it gave me towards that, because I'm a huge gamer. Like, I've been gaming since I was a kid. I grab everything new that's coming out under the sun. I grew up playing JRPGs, and I had the SNES emulators, so just so I could play games that weren't released in the States. And so that's really where I'm getting inspired, is those video games. recently Elden Rings came out, and that's just a dream come true. I love all the From Software games, and um, I'm just a big fan of the storytelling, the combination of music, visual, and the interactivity that video games provide. To me, it's the perfect form of media entertainment. You have everything there. And then on top of that, I love cinematic masterpieces. I love big, long, slow films, like all the Lord of the Rings extended cuts. I'm really into that. And when they give you those little glimpses, like, oh, he got handed a little vial of something, but they never tell you what that is. Then you watch the extended cut, you know what that is. Or the mouth of Sauron comes out and speaks to them, and you never got his backstory. I'm the guy that goes on Google and goes, what's the backstory of this guy? Where is it written in the books? I looked up the Predator 2 when Danny Glover gets handed the Flint rifle. I looked that up. There's extended canon that a predator killed a pirate, or a pirate killed a predator. So those types of things just kick me off in getting creative, and that's what I want to bring to the Boneheads, because that's where it'll be fun for me. Yeah, Boneheads is a really cute name, and they look cute and mischievous, but the story is actually very dark and very mature oriented, as well. So it's very much like along the lines of Elden Rings. You see a little bit of the lore written or something, then you go into a certain part of the castle and you see a dead body there, and you figure that out. You take those breadcrumbs, you go, oh, he died because he's part of this and that, and it's hidden in the story. Those are the experiences that make it so lush and deep, and it would be remiss to not add that into the Boneheads storytelling, and to really provide that just deep music that really fills out the experience and the vibe for you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you brought up From Software. Miyazaki has, I think, done a lot of work to, I think, legitimize lore as a form of like main storytelling, and rather than just like a prescriptive. We've got a script, we've got all these scripted events that happen, and like that's the story of the game. Instead, you kind of get this where he himself has this massive kind of encyclopedic story in his head, and he purposefully
Yeah.
drops pieces in the world, leaves certain pieces off the table for players to fill it in. I think that's a very holistic approach to storytelling, and I'm very glad to hear that you are approaching Boneheads that way.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I'm very excited to see what you do. I know that some of the space is, obviously informed by whether or not you have a mountain of money after your mint. But I'm always a big fan of people who are kind of building in spite of, or building with what they've been given by the community. And so I think you can do a lot, especially with your skill set. One of the things I wanted to kick back to that you mentioned was creating theme music for each of your core Boneheads characters. Can you walk me a bit through kind of your musical creation process, and how you want to approach it with the Boneheads characters?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's really, music is so important to me. I think that music tells a story as well. If you were to watch the films, Halloween, for example, they wouldn't be the same film without that iconic score, and the same goes for Star Wars. Darth Vader enters the room, you get a little bit of his theme, or they could even tell you when the screen wipe transition is happening. Here's the hopeful theme, and here's a little bit of the few notes from the Darth Vader scene, so you know that things are about to get dark fast. So that's going to be important for this story, because each character, there's something going on when they enter and when they're involved. So creating that theme music is going to tell a little bit about their personality, and it's also going to be important emotional cues at some point, so that why they're coming, what's happening, where it's going. So I'm going to be looking at every character and really just focusing on them and imagining, in motion and entrance, like what does that sound like and what does that feel like. The other thing is, like you said, just doing, like we're not promising the music fairly quickly. That's going to be along the lines as people are holding, but I'm already creating that. That's just, it's what I have to do. So everything's going to exist, and it is there, and I'm selling out the Genesis or not at this point in time. I'm still just keeping moving forward, exploring different things I can do with these characters, customizations, one-of-ones, things like that. Just having fun with it. But the most important thing is creating content and trying to minimize gaps in between so that the satisfaction and the gratification is there as we build this community. And then once the community is active and bustling, the community itself is going to start taking control of things, and that's going to start having its own legs, and the storytelling will grow from there, and that will also be exciting. Another great thing about all this is our developer is extremely talented. He's on the same page. He's a Magic the Gathering fan like myself. He knows my references when I mention them, and so we're on the same page. So when I want to come out and start exploring things and start creating this storytelling and just bringing a community, and I have somebody that can implement all of these things from a technological standpoint. So it's a great synergy, and it's going to be really easy to just keep moving forward with the content.
Yeah, I think that's a really great kind of philosophy and approach. I'm a big fan of kind of pacing yourself with creating. I think in this space it can often turn into a go 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 go, and I think one of the best examples of that, at least in recent memory, is Goblin Town. Those guys
Oh
were
yeah.
like, oh, we created an entire collection in one day, and then everybody's been like trying to like make their derivative as fast as possible, and like that doesn't necessarily, sometimes it can lead to something inspired, but a lot of the time that work needs to be done over time for it to be a truly artful product. And so I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're taking your time. I have worked myself on a few generative collections. We did a generative collection here for our P2E game for Dogira Studios, but I've also in my side projects in the NFT space, I've worked on a couple generative and one-of-one collections. And so I wanted to get your insight a bit into, I know you can't talk about it too much because you haven't really talked about your generative collection for Boneheads too much yet, but how have you been finding the generative asset creation process, kind of opposed to that one-of-one heavily character design process that you engaged in with this Genesis collection?
Yeah, so I think with generative assets, it's a little bit more structured. It kind of grounds you a bit. It'd be the same as me going and sitting down to write a song, and I just go into my many folders of VSTs and plugins, and I just start picking from them. But with the generative, I have a foundation that I have to adhere to in order to make sure everything's going to work correctly, land where it's supposed to land. So it kind of gives me a little bit of grounding and a little bit of a guideline, which is okay because that also will lend itself to the storytelling. So, the shapes and the things that are involved have to make sense. What's generating on them still has to fit the overall story. It's not just going to be some random thing, like, oh, here's a character with, Oakley sunglasses. Oakleys don't exist in this universe. So, it absolutely has to make sense. And it's just, it's a little bit, it's a different process, but it's also kind of satisfying to have limitations where I have to work within certain parameters because in many ways that helps me flourish as well. Because when I do sit down to create these, I'm usually starting with the eyes and building around that. And then um, I'm giving myself ideas as I'm seeing these creations, and this art appear on the page. It's like, oh, okay, this is where I'm going with it. This is the personality. This is the name, So that can take a while, and that can be a little bit more difficult at times, and takes a lot more of a mental patience and a certain type of mental clarity. But with the generative, again, I'm working within parameters and with guidelines, so it is beneficial, and it's really fun to create these little assets and to at first I created my one-of-ones, my flagship characters, the 30, and then I just knew they were there, they existed, I walked away. So anytime I add something to that or see something new on them, maybe it's clothing, maybe I'm doing a derivative of something to honor another community, like for example Bobby Bear, dressed him up like a homie, so the crypto homies, I'd have my PFP for their space. That's so fun, because I always really enjoyed seeing different versions of, let's say, Bart Simpson. You'd have regular Bart, then you'd have like superhero Bart and zombie Bart and Godzilla Bart. You'd see that, and it's really exciting because you knew that character, you're familiar with him, and now you're seeing him in different versions or honoring different things that you're also a fan of. So I think the difference between the two is that it's a different process, it's a different mental approach, but they're both very fulfilling and very fun.
Oh man, You are speaking my language right now. I love your commitment to design. Even in the realm of generative collections are much more mathematic. I mean, you have to stick to a grid a lot more than you do with a kind of a one of one piece or just an original piece of art. And I love that you're finding ways to align it so that they don't feel totally alien to your origin collection or your Genesis collection, but they pay homage to the people that you're friends with in this space, and kind of really leaning into the community aspect. In terms
Absolutely.
of, I guess, the overall design of your generative collection, then, can you give me a little bit of insight into maybe the different body types that you're looking to work with, maybe the number of assets overall that you're kind of aiming to create? Because I think that's also, something that I just, as an NFT artist, I really get interested in is kind of like the scope of what you're generating.
Sure. Yeah. Again, I can't go too in depth on it because then I'd be spoiling a lot of the surprises and kind of going against my own effort to under promise and over deliver. But I will say that within the Boneheads, you have you have your hybrids, and they're more akin to animals and things that are familiar. Then you have your ancients, and they're a little bit more reptilian and alien looking. So, excuse me. So with the generative, you'll be either creating a hybrid or you'll be creating an ancient, and then the assets that populate on those will be relevant to the story arcs of those particular creatures, and the ancients are more uh, apt to have certain things that they'll do, and they can be good, they can be bad, and then the hybrids are generally good. And so you're going to be seeing things that will make sense to that. You'll see an ancient that might be holding a weapon, and you would be less likely to see a weapon in the hands of a hybrid, because they're more of the heroes of the story. So that's a lot more than I've said to anybody else, so I've given a little bit of new alpha on that. But yeah, that's a
Much
little bit of.
appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. There's some breadcrumbs on that generative. And
um,
you asked me about the number. We're looking to maybe do between 4 and 5,000. We
mm,
are offering 5 free mints in the generative for all of each wallet that holds Boneheads. So we have to account for that, and then make sure that people that are coming in new are also able to get some. So we're working on the sweet spot between those two numbers, I believe.
yeah, no, that is extremely cool. I am very excited to see how they turn out. I'm a little giddy about it. Hearing you kind of talk about the hybrids being kind of like more heroes, and the ancients being kind of potentially dubious morally, and they have um, different alignments to on the good evil scale than the hybrids is really super cool.
Totally.
I gotta say, I'm really impressed with just the level of thought you put into it. I really feel like that you
Thank you.
are building a brand where I think a lot of NFT projects are pretending to build a brand. And maybe that's for something I want to. I don't want to turn any of this conversation into like a dishing at other projects, but you've
Sure.
been in this space long enough. I don't believe in being negative towards other projects on this show. I don't think there's any reason to
Same.
be. I want it to be a help to people. What do you think
Yep.
then? Because you've been in the space a while and you've talked to a lot of projects. What do you think kind of the big misstep that projects make when they're kind of building a brand? What are you seeing kind of recurring that makes it hard for people to get behind projects that are sounding kind of ambitious, but they might not have the skill to do it?
Sure. I can't speak to that too much. I'm still just in the infancy of my own project. But, from a consumer standpoint, I think the thing that turns me off a little bit is this is a creative space. There is art behind it. So there should be a certain sense of imagination and fun behind that. I understand that some projects are purely based on utility. You have like the slow turtles, they're helping with turtles and rescues and things like that, and those are all fantastic. But I see a lot of people coming and speaking on behalf of these projects, and they just don't sound creative. They don't sound like they're convinced, like they're having fun with it. It's kind of just an elevator pitch. And it's really easy for people to get lost in the tech side of it and start being preachy about that. Like, you know, your project should do A, B, and C and staking and play to earn, you know, so they're getting very specific and they're making it black and white. And I don't think that this is ever going to be black and white, nor should it ever be, because there's so much creativity that you can do within this space. Any approach you want is fine. I'm cool with art being the utility. I'd prefer it myself, you know. I'm also cool with the utility being, you know, benefiting charities and, you know, people being able to stake and do things as a community. Those are all things that I personally don't wrap my head around as well, because I'm not as savvy with those things. And I know that there's a place for them. So I think the biggest turnoff for me is when the fun is lost, when the innocence is lost, when there's that sense of imagination, but then there's great art and who's behind it, you know, pushing that and making that more in depth. So if I could say anything and speak on anything on that, I just hope to see, you know, people um, really being careful not to say that you have to do it. This is the right way. This is the wrong way. As long as you're not cheating anybody and you're being genuine, then I think everybody should be able to take whatever road they want to arrive to the same conclusion, that we're all here to build something new and populate a new space in an exciting way where we can do all these, you know, these things that are so fun.
I think that's a great answer, which actually transitions very nicely into one of my final questions for you. When it comes to you know, the work that in the time that you've been spending in this space, what's a project that you think that you kind of have your eye on, that you're really, you know, looking out for, that might be kind of leading the charge on something, or just one that you really admire for their art or, you know, their community or whatever?
Sure, that's tough. There's so many, you know. I know I mentioned, you know, woke zombies, crypto homies, funky flies, the, you know, hillbilly hound dogs. There's so many, and the Chad and Brads. They've all, you know, they've all shown that this is the formula for the community to make it work, is to be kind, be welcoming, you know, band together. But I will say, from like a utility standpoint and what they're doing, I really like what the Stuffy Bunnies are doing, because Chad, who's really going out there and speaking most of the time, you know, they're offering cold storage and education, you know, helping people, but they're also delivering it in a way that's friendly to kids and that's, you know, pleasing. You know, they're doing the stuffed bunnies that are actual, like USB, like you know, ledger wallets and things like that. Chad has gyms and he's providing all kinds of cool utility IRL as well. So I'm really interested in what they're doing, and I think that there's a lot of genuine passion behind it. And the goal is to educate people and bring them in safely while also providing some art. So that's one that I would keep an eye on, and, you know, I'm really happy to support. But again, I've mentioned some projects in this, and you would not go wrong by following them and getting involved in their communities, because they're some of the nicest people, the most welcoming. And if you have questions, or you're not sure, you know, you don't know what the slang is, you don't know what people are talking about, you're never going to feel foolish stepping up and asking them. And that's what I hope to see going forward in the Web3 space, is these communities.
Love it. Love it. Then I think my last question for you, and to kind of get a bit reflective on kind of your shift into, you know, Web3 and the world of NFTs. One of the first things I saw was after your mint started. There was a blue check mark Twitter guy who had said, "Oh yeah, you know, I bought one of these bonehead NFTs," and everybody. And he has mostly a non Web3 audience, and so of course everybody in the comments is like, "Oh, you just bought a scam. What did you do? You know, like, oh, not you too, man." And like, I just want to kind of get your overall thoughts. How does it feel, kind of like having been kind of not in the Web3 space, and then, you know, having fans of your own, and then moving into the Web3 space and kind of having to grapple with, suddenly everybody thinks you're a scammer, everybody thinks you're, you know, just some grifter, when really you're just like, I want to make good art and I want to build a community. This is the place to do that. Yeah, I'd love to kind of hear your take on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, that was David Vonderhaar. He's one of the heads behind the Call of Duty series. He's one of my best friends, and we've completed the entirety of Elden Rings together, and we will be doing New Game Plus together. But I love him to death, and he was genuine about. I didn't ask him to purchase it at all. I didn't even send him a link, but he saw it go live. He asked me if he could buy one, how to do it. He almost bought one off a site that didn't even belong to us. And, you know, just generally wanted to get out there and support a friend, and made that post. We didn't even get to cut him off at the pass and ask him to include the link, you know, so it was kind of funny, but I saw the comments, and, you know, bless him, because he knew he would get some flack for supporting NFTs. And, you know, I have a few friends that had the same reservations, you know, that are bigger influencers and didn't want to, you know, have that sort of attention. And I totally understand, but I do also understand that no matter what people are saying right now, that this is inevitable. This is where it's all going. NFTs, Web3, it's inevitable. So, you know, I'd never let that make me shy away from a new frontier, you know, a new pursuit. I have a solo project called All the Damn Vampires, and it's retro wave, synth wave, kind of akin to music you'd hear on Stranger Things, or, you know, some of the 80s and 90s stuff that I grew up on. And, you know, coming out with a female led pop song, and, you know, saying, hey, this is a song I produced, this is my project. I expected nothing but hell from my metalhead fans and friends, but it was so well received, and it reached all the right people, and I personally felt satisfied. So I don't really think about, you know, how I'm going to be received, as far as when I make content and I put it out. Once I decide to put it out and I've done it, that's it. I'm behind it 110%, no matter how it's taken, who's committing to it. If people decide to invest in me at that point, and then I will continue to invest in them. But first and foremost, I'm always investing in myself, and anything that I'm putting out, I stand behind 110%, and I won't back down from it. So, you know, people can throw mud at the NFT space all they want, call it scams. That's fine. Those people can do their thing. But us here right now, actively in this community and investing in it, we know what it is. We know where it's going to go, and we're still going to be here once it's thriving. And, you know, big companies are starting to grab onto it and try to get their piece of the pie, and it's all of a sudden a commercially accepted thing. So, yeah, I think that's kind of my mind on it, and I have no concerns. I'm so happy to be here and be doing this. And, you know, you heard all the references I made and all the video games, and now I'm going to get to give back my side of that to that community in that world.
Yeah, I feel extremely vindicated, because I was in that comment section being like, guys, I think they might be friends, like, cut him some slack, like, and they're like, oh, there's no way, he's probably you know, probably got paid. And I was like, okay, come on, like, you know, they're both blue checks. You don't usually see this other guy, like, sorry, I keep forgetting his name. I feel really bad about that.
That's okay.
But
David Vonderhaar.
like he just, yeah, sorry, thank you, David. David's like, he's not usually just retweeting random NFT projects. You know, like, maybe there's a friendship there. So I feel very vindicated. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
But man, that honestly, it's just really, and I know this sounds really corny, and I get gushy when I talk to other creators. So sorry to any future
okay.
podcast guests, for you'll have to deal with me being gushy. And thank you for letting me be gushy. But like, it's moving to me when, you know, when you kind of say, you know, look, you know, I make something, I'm behind 100%. I think there's enough people out there who are fantastic creators like yourself, who don't get behind themselves 100%, and that's what ends up making you know, success with their pushes very difficult, because, you know, they're causing their own path resistance. So kudos to you for, you know, having been creative for so long, learning those lessons, and being, you know, your own 100% all the way cheerleader, because I think that's really important. So thank you for sharing that wonderful nugget of insight. Anyway, yeah, guys, it's been 45 minutes already. Can't believe it. It has been really good to chat with. Yeah, it really did. It's been so great to chat with you, Davey. Is there anything you want to, besides Boneheads, that you want to shout out? Any other websites, any other projects, any metal or just regular music recommendations you have off the top of your head?
Yeah. Shout out Chad and Brad's, Crypto Homies, Stuffy Bunnies, Woke Zombies, Funky Flies, Hillbilly Hound Dogs. There's so many to name. Kush Cats. You know, everybody's just trying to do their best and doing great things. And I can genuinely tell you that I've interacted with all these communities. They're worth your time. They're worth getting involved in. Check out my project, All the Damn Vampires. I'll have a full length album coming out soon. I guarantee you, it's the best soundtrack to a late night drive through the city or by the ocean. And please follow NFT Boneheads. Get involved in our Discord. I'm right here with you guys. We're going to be having a lot of fun together, and I want more people to give my stuff to because I'm excited about it. It's going to be fun.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Bottom. If you would like to learn more about Dogira and Dogira Studios, please consider heading over to our websites, dogira.net or dogira.finance, where you can find out more about our project, our token, our products, and our DeFi platform. I'm your host, Elijah McDougall, and I look forward to catching you on the next one.